Hello, this is Dry Oasis. I'm your host. And these two, as always, are my two co-hosts, Kirby and Snorlax. Say hello, Kirby and Snorlax. Hi-yo. And I hope that you've all had a great day so far. And if not, I hope the rest of your day is better or tomorrow is better for you. Okay, as for today's little topic here, hold on a moment. I'm just going to do something completely different. So right now I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite Capcom games. This list was originally inspired by MaxDood and YoVideoGames topic of discussion that happened a few days ago, maybe a week ago. I don't know. They streamed it a little while ago, so yeah. Anyways, getting on to the topic of hand though, I'm just going to point out some honorable mentions or so that won't be on my list at all. Let's see here. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. I have yet to play and open this game yet, so I heard really good things about it. It reinvigorated the Resident Evil series. I don't know why I haven't played it yet. For around Halloween, I will probably get to it. Okami, one of the biggest cult classics out there, and for good reason. Looks beautiful, looks great. Devil May Cry, in general as a series. I don't know why I've yet to play any of the games so far. I've actually gotten to beating at least Devil May Cry, the first one at least, but haven't beaten it yet for whatever reason. Dead Rising. I know the remake or whatever is out there, but I've heard really good things about just the original game, so there's that. Resident Evil Village, basically like Resident Evil 4 again, but not as good. Who knows? Let's see here. Monster Hunter Wilds, which I've heard meh things about, but I still want to get into beating it. Let's see here. Beautiful Joe. I got this over at a GameStop around here in the valley like a couple of days ago. Really want to play it though. I've heard things about it. And finally, last but not least, the Ace Attorney collections, at least Prosecutor's Gambit, because I'm a huge Ace Attorney fan and I've been waiting for at least like 14 years or so to finally play the game, and it finally came out on the Nintendo Switch on modern consoles like sometime last year, so I'm really interested in playing that game. Alright, some honorable mentions here and there. Monster Hunter World, really great game, really great gameplay. It was one of the biggest deals of 2018 when it came out. 2017? But yeah, it was a totally different experience from Monster Hunter games before it. Was a lot more accessible because of the interconnected worlds and all of that. And there wasn't much of in terms of load time or whatever, so yeah, I'll recommend that. Let's see here. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, one of the biggest packed games out there to relieve like 4 different types of worlds or whatever, but it was really one of the massive Monster Hunter games ever. Let's see here. Mega Man, or at least Mega Man 2, 3, and 6 were really good, and my favorites, like 2 is iconic for a good amount of reasons. 3 introduced Blues or Proto Man, one of the best characters ever, and Mega Man 6 was basically Street Fighter but with Mega Man. I've got to play through 7 through 11 yet, so will take me some time. Let's see here. I kind of liked one of the games in here. Let's see here. Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, also including the Mega Man ZX series, but X and Zero and the ZX series, because I definitely want to get into this eventually. Oh wait, I've yet to beat Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, but I'm going to say that this game is really good nonetheless. Let's see here. Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy, or in other terms, Ace Attorney Dual Destinies. It was kind of like a big revival ever since Apollo Justice and Ace Attorney Investigations, Miles Edgeworth, weren't so well, so Dual Destinies was a right direction, and unfortunately I still think to this day, I don't know what it was, Spirit of Justice had great ideas, but they fumbled the game a little bit. It felt like they were going at a breakneck speed, and some of the cases felt shorter for whatever reason. Never really liked that. As for Apollo Justice, the actual first game in this series, one of the biggest black sheeps of the Ace Attorney series, and yeah. And that also goes with Ace Attorney Investigations, Miles Edgeworth. Both of them are like the black sheeps of games or whatever. Let's see here. You can get the Capcom Fighting Collection only because of the Darkstalker stuff. Let's see here. Cyberbots and Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition. What? And I'm not sure. Maybe I should think about getting Red Earth or what? Playing Red Earth or whatever. But I played the Darkstalker games. They're fine. And most, but not controversially, Street Fighter or at least the Street Fighter series in general. You might not like what I have to say about this, but I never grew up with the Street Fighter series. I was more of a Tekken guy myself, so I understand its importance, but I probably could not get it back into older Street Fighter. I mean, I do think that Ultra Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 6 are okay. I haven't really played much of 5 now that I think about it. Maybe one of these days. Okay, so with that out of the way. Oh, wait. Actually, I'm just going to bring up the Capcom Fighting Collection 2. Moreover, Power Stone 2 is probably my favorite out of these games in particular. Tried to get into Power Stone 1 and Capcom versus SNK 2 Millennium Match, I think it was called. Though those weren't just hitting it for me for whatever reason, so if you like any of the games that I gave an honorable mention to but weren't in my top 10, please, I suggest that you go out and... Oh yeah, hold on a moment. There's also Mega Man X4 from this collection. Found it to be okay, but it was pretty much the voice acting that killed it for me. Everything else was really good, like fighting as Zero in Mega Man X4 was fantastic. So, without further ado, I'll get on to my list. Okay, so number 10. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Alright, so you're not gonna like what I have to say about this because this is a bit controversial. Hold on a moment, I'm offline. Oh, sure, I'm online. Yeah, I'm online. Anyways, back to where I was. The Capcom Fighting Collection was released. Yeah. The Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, or whatever it was called, was a huge deal last year. Actually, it was pretty much a huge deal throughout good amounts of the last decade or so, where even people in the wrestling world demanded to see their the audience to see their signs of why free Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It was huge news, like in the not only the beginning of this decade, but a good amount of the last decade or so. So yeah, we basically wanted Marvel vs. Capcom, and we got a whole collection. Now, what I'm about to do is split hairs, because Marvel vs. Capcom, gameplay-wise, is one of the biggest deals out there. 3 versus 3 characters, a solid roster, all of that. And what could I really have a negative opinion about it? Well, first of all, I probably will get flame warred for this, but the music is really good. Doesn't really fit well into a Marvel vs. Capcom game. It's jazzy, and I like jazz music, but I never thought about jazz music when it comes to fighting games or all of that. And the first game in the series was actually more like rock and roll, all that kind of such. Anyways, I do like the jazz vibe of the soundtrack or whatever, but I don't believe it entirely fits the whole game in and out of itself. Then there's the final boss. Good gosh, I hate the final boss so much. You know what, I'm just gonna say it. Abyss is annoying to deal with, because Abyss is like... First off, Abyss is like a new character. All then I'm like, who the heck is this guy? He doesn't belong anywhere. It's like that one guy from the Jimmy and Timmy Power Hour thing that used to air on Nicktoons, and there was the third one that they created. Anyways, so I hated Abyss, but here's the thing. Single player wise, it's probably my least favorite out of the series, but multiplayer wise, it's probably there for a good reason. So yeah. Anyways, moving on to our next one. Number 9. Number 9 is DuckTales. So, as for DuckTales, I've beat it on the Saturday Afternoon collection. That stuff that's the collection that's currently on Xbox, on the Xbox series or whatever. And it's kind of awkward because I do have the DuckTales remastered game. Probably would like to play it sometime, because I've heard really good things about this remaster. But yeah, DuckTales. What more do I have to say about DuckTales? It's probably one of Capcom and Disney's biggest collaborations ever. I mean, sure, there's Goof Troop, but it's currently not out conveniently for modern platforms, so I really can't include it anywhere. Oh yeah, as for the Street Fighter series, just a little backtrack. As for the Street Fighter series, and specifically Street Fighter 2, I know it has a huge legacy behind it, but man, I've never been much into the old school games themselves. But I do understand it's important. They do get an honorable mention. Anyways, DuckTales. Let's see here. It's based on a really good TV show. It has good characters, and the gameplay is so iconic that even Shovel Knight took inspiration from it years later. Well, not years later, like decades later. I don't know when DuckTales game came out, but anyways, DuckTales is a solid platformer. There's really solid level designs. Everybody definitely knows the moon theme here and out. And yeah, really solid platformer. Can't go wrong with it. And I don't remember what problems I had with it, but it's really fine. Alright, so next on my list, Mega Man X. Just Mega Man X, because... Alright, hold on a moment. Oopsie doopsie, where are you? Come on, you. Alright. That's number 8. Anyways, Mega Man X. So, yeah. Let's see here. Mega Man X, one of the biggest improvements from the NES to SNES was the not only horizontal movement in general was like upscaled through X grew stronger due to gaining health, experience, not only like the usual boss upgrades, but slowly health upgrades, and even ability upgrades, like the dash was like, dashing's like an ability that he has to earn throughout the game. The bosses are iconic, the stages and the music are great. Sigma is one of the most intimidating villains in Series. X is really one of the biggest, not underdogs, but he definitely fits as a hero. Zero is like cocky, but he's really good veteran or whatever. And Zero is so amazing because of his Z Saber or whatever. And basically, Mega Man X is like the peak, for me, was the peak of the Mega Man series, no doubt. Fantastic level design here and there. And even though his opinions are controversial as to some things, I do have to give a certain Ego Raptor credit on the game design and the game design of Mega Man X. To this day, his video is used for video game design classes here and there, even though he was like a dropout. So, but even then, he knows what he's talking about some of the times. And one of the best times he talked about the game was Mega Man X, of course. And seriously, Mega Man X deserves the hype. I don't remember much bad things about it. Oh, yeah, and there's one huge unlockable that references a certain Street Fighter, so Mega Man X. It's hype, it's hyped for real, and I will never dissuade anybody else that says it's not bad for whatever reason. Yeah, Mega Man X. Alright. Oh boy, a controversial opinion. Alright, number 7 is Marvel vs. Capcom. Just Marvel vs. Capcom. Okay, so where do I begin with this? So, it doesn't have the 3 versus 3 gameplay that we all know and like, but it does have an assist system, if I remember. The levels are really good. Even though it's shorter than Marvel 2's, it's still a solid lineup for what it is. The soundtrack, I think, works a lot better than the sequels, and because, of course, I beat this for single player. I think that Onslaught technically is a better villain than Abyss will ever be. Don't at me on that. And after I beat this game, I wondered who Onslaught was, and when I found out, I just said, "Huh, that's really cool idea for a character in general." So yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom, one of the biggest games that I've ever played and liked, and yeah. Let's see here. Oh boy, I probably won't defend this much. Well, actually, I'm going to defend it, but it's only by one little thing only. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. The only thing that just the hugest reasons that I like this game so much are really just Deadpool and Phoenix Wright. And that's really much all that I'm really going to talk about. Probably is not mechanically as good as the other two Marvel vs. Capcom games, but I just like Phoenix Wright and Deadpool, and they're in this game, and they aren't in the other two games. Bias, I know, but deal with it. I'm an Ace Attorney fan. I see what I like. Alright. Number 5. Okay, so this one's going to be really interesting for me to say. Resident Evil 4. Both the remake and the original. What can I really say about this? It's basically Resident Evil 4, one of the biggest defining games out there. It revitalized the interest in the Resident Evil series somewhat. It went for both games have their own kind of charm to them. Resident Evil 4 is more campy in that it has more laughs here and there. Resident Evil 4 plays more like the recent remakes, where it takes it a little bit more darker, but there's still a good amount of laughs here and there with the remake. As for let's see here. The story in the remake, I think, is a lot more fleshed out, a lot more interesting, even though it loses like some points because it's not as bright or as fun as the original. Let's see here. I think the music in the remake is also better. Although you can't beat the corny jokes in the original. Let's see here. Gameplay-wise, it's really a toss-up because Resident Evil 4 plays like the current games, while Resident Evil 4 has tank controls. It actually does have tank controls. It's just that it's in the third-person shooter kind of thing now. And, yeah. Both of these games are really good. The remake did do away with the quick time events, so if you were a fan of the remake's version, then there's that. The remake doesn't have the one scripted scene while Leon is trying to get away from the huge Salazar statue, gigantic Salazar statue, and Leon's just running away here and there. That's not in the remake, unfortunately, but most of the other stuff is. And this version also has the Separate Ways not DLC, but Separate Ways campaign. I think Mercenary Mercenaries and Separate Ways are free on here, while as Resident and the remake, they're paid DLC. You get what you can, but oh yeah, the DLC for Resident Evil 4 is like, it's definitely stranger because there's a new enemy that harasses Ada 1 in the remake version of Separate Ways, and it's a little bit more tense because of that. Actually, there's a lot more bonus stuff in the remake. Like, not only do you get like the Chicago typewriter or whatever it was called in the remake, but there's also these cat ear bonus stuff that make you have unlimited ammo. I got that after a while of playing the remake like on hardcore or whatever a good amount of time and getting the best results. Man, that was infuriating. But I got through it and it was really fun. Anyways. So yeah. Resident Evil 4. Either version is really nice. So yeah. Okay, so let's see here. We're eventually going to get into those other games and what I think about them later on. Let's see here. Oh, I don't have this out here. It's part of my digital stuff. But okay, so I'm not entirely... Wait, does this one? I don't exactly remember if this game has the joke character, but I do remember Akuma being an unlockable character, and that was really nice. Anyways, Marvel superheroes. Well, basically, the only reason that I really like this game is because Thanos is in it, and basically, the Infinity Stones have a huge gameplay element here. And even though that was a huge element in Infinite, not too many people like Marvel versus Capcom Infinite, but here the Infinity Stones or whatever are actually really important to this game. And Thanos as the final villain actually kind of makes sense here. And it was a different Thanos than what we got like 12 years after this game came out. So yeah, Thanos was a huge deal even back in the 90s. And I didn't realize that until like Avengers. But yeah, Thanos is one of the hugest meanest characters in all of Marvel. It was great defeating him in that game. Online wise, this game might not do well, but I usually look at these games as a single player. So yeah. And what else is there? Yeah, not Resident Evil, but Marvel superheroes. Really fun single player wise, and definitely would recommend it. But that's just going to be splitting a lot of here, so on to the third game. Right, the third game that is my favorite Capcom game. Third favorite Capcom game would be Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Oh yeah, another preface to the honorable mentions. One of them would also have to be Phoenix Wright Trials and Tribulations. Basically, one of the best ending part. Not only because it's their game in the series and it perfected a good amount of the gameplay stuff, but it also concluded the trilogy with a nice send-off here. send off here and there. Basically, it has a good amount of cases, good amount of intrigue, great music, great atmosphere, and all that. Trials and Tribulations is one of the best ways to end a trilogy, hands down. As for Phoenix Wright Justice for All, I put there in the Black Sheep stuff alongside Apollo Justice and Ace Attorney Investigations 1, but that's just because Justice for All was like a little bit of a step back here and there. It was a little bit more harder in a sense, not really accessible compared to the other games in the series, but I'll say this one thing. The final case in Justice for All is probably the best in the series, no doubt. And yeah, as for why I chose Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, okay, so this one's basically a personal reason, but my brother first played it, and I got to see it through his eyes, and I remember being mesmerized at when I was like in my teen years when it came out over here in the West, like in 2005 or so. I was in high school around the time, and yeah, I don't know what it was, but it clicked for me and my brother and I, and we've been fan of the series ever since, and it hasn't been a tough ride being an Ace Attorney fan, that I'm sure about, but yeah, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney means so much to me. It was a new IP I've never heard of at the time, and my brother and I had really so much fun with this game, even though there's clearly some problems with it nowadays, like pacing wise for the third and fourth case. For the US, for overseas in particular, we got this game with a brand new fifth case that had DS capabilities, which was really amazing at the time. Made us feel like detectives, spraying fingerprints analysis stuff. Like, what else was there? Finding handprints, looking for blood splatter here and there. Whoops, looking for blood with the luminal testing fluid. Made us look like detectives here and there. It was a different... The fifth case in particular was really just for the benefit of the DS alone, and it hasn't been recreated one-to-one really well for the HD stuff, but it's still there. Also, for those wondering, I think that the HD trilogy is fine, even if some people claim about the models here and there. I do like the pixelated versions as well, and will always treasure the way the original pixel version was, but I can't deny in saying that the recent versions aren't bad as well. Plus, a good amount of the recent re-releases still hold on to those 2000 slang stuff here and there, so it's not really that bad. Anyways, where was I? Alright, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Here, I've been really hopeful for the series because it's about to turn 25 as of next year, and I really hope it keeps on going strong here and there, because hold on a moment. Look at some of the stuff that I have up here on this wall. Some of this stuff is stuff that my roommate collected. over the years. So yeah, I really hope that there's a new Ace Attorney game coming up sometime within the next year, because there hasn't been a mainline game since like 2016, and that was Ace Attorney 6, and I'm like, do they forget the series again? I mean, clearly not, because of the trilogies that they've been releasing. Like, Ace Attorney Trilogy, Apollo Justice Ace Attorney Trilogy, and let's see here, Ace Attorney Investigations Duology, and another duology that I will get into later. But most of these games can be played on modern consoles, except for the Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton crossover. Hold on a moment. Do I have that in here still? Where are you? Where are you? Ah, there it is. Yep, I still have my version of this game, even though I consider it to be meh, a fun crossover here and there. Yeah, so yeah, that's number 3 on my list. And what else would be there? Number 2. Resident Evil 2 Remake. Okay, so this one's probably going to be a little bit heated, because many people will swear that the original is better because of the amount of stuff that it has that the remake changes. And I'm like, do I really want to enjoy a game that has really wonky tank controls that I might not like, or play a game that is least scary but the controls are still good to play? You know what? For those who want scares, play the older games like Resident Evil, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 0. Actually, Resident Evil Remake was actually really good, and it was okay. Not my favorite of the series, but it was fine enough for what it is. I guess it was really mostly the controls of that game, but Resident Evil 2 Remake, it was kind of important because it came out after like 2 years after we got Resident Evil 7, and it showed us how important a remake can be, and how a remake can change certain things. Like, it was scary enough for me. Even Mr. X was like, oh dang, he's going to be everywhere now, isn't he? Like, in the original, Mr. X was not like he was in the remake. In the remake, he's more like Nemesis, and these kind of screwed up Nemesis in the 3 remake. You know what? I think 3 and 3 remake are just fine, but Resident Evil 2 Remake, I think, is one of the best solid remakes that I've ever played. Because I'm not even sure if I would even touch the original, because Resident Evil 2 Remake is still fun to play, good amount of unlockables here and there, like Resident Evil 4, but there's so much to do, and you get to play as 2 different characters. The scenario theme is there, but it's a little bit different from the original, that what you are getting is what you get out of that, whereas the remake is a lot more forgiving in a sense. But yeah, I definitely did love the remake because the characters are interesting, the world is engaging, the enemies are incredible, even the face lickers are like genuinely terrifying. Mr. X is really terrifying. The whole story is intriguing, and even though you might need to play the original to get the context of this game released Resident Evil Remake to get some context. Even then, the story is still fine, really fine for what it is. I've never felt more terrified of being in a city full of zombies and all of that. Everybody's going crazy. It's like the end of the world. Also, the original might have been the starting point to where things were action-packed, but the remake actually makes things a lot more impactful as well, because it goes for Resident Evil 2 goes for the, I think for the first person, the third person over the shoot style like Resident Evil 4 was doing, and tried to even make it better. And anyways, there's a good amount of unlockables in Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's fun, it's scary, it's incredible. And this is the first time in the series where I finally got Resident Evil, like the perfect blend of horror and action, because I wasn't a huge fan of the other games because I was scared, but I felt like I had not much to really horrible timing with it, because I'm not a huge fan of horror in a sense, because the control is taken away from me and I can't do anything about that. That especially goes for horror movies, but some video games like Resident Evil 2 Remake, I have control and I feel powerful by the end. I feel unstoppable, and yeah, that is where I will get off with that. Resident Evil 2 is great, and I will defend it. Now, this is the final stretch of this video, and this was hard for me because in my usual top 100, I would make this into 2 separate games because it came out differently when it was out in Japan. It wasn't part of a collection of sorts, so, but for the sake of this video, I'm kind of cheating, so and last but not least, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, or Adventure and Resolve. So yeah, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, I was a little bit miffed when it came out, and this series as a whole came out in 2015 and 2017 over in Japan, and we didn't get it over here in the West because of copyright problems, because of course one of our main characters in this game is this guy right here, and we can't have good things without this guy. So yeah, we didn't originally get out here in the West when those games were released back then, but like on the 15th birthday of the series, guess what? We finally got both games in this collection. And I've seen and originally here's the thing, Great Ace, these games, and Ace Attorney Investigations 2, Prosecutors Path, back then as it was called, all of these had fan translations in some sense, so I would never play them, more like see people play translated ROMs or whatever that weren't officially released. So I had to wait a few years, a good while, for Prosecutor's Gambit, as we call it there, but we got these eventually, like 6 and 4 years later respectively. So yeah, the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles series. Okay, so they're easy games to get into because you don't need to play the Ace Attorney. This is a prequel in a sense, so you don't need to play any of the other Ace Attorney games in the series. These games help you along as they go anyways. And the story about this one guy, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, becoming a better attorney as time goes on is incredible. He's one of the hugest underdogs ever. The supporting cast is incredible. Susato is like Maya, but somehow even more fun to work with. Kazuma Sogi is basically a samurai in spirit because he has this huge sword there. Let's see here. There's a good amount of supporting characters, but one of the hugest two, of course, has to be Herlock Sholmes and Iris Wilson. Yep, you heard me right there. The reason why this got delayed in the West for the longest time was because of copyright reasons of the most interesting degree. And oh yeah, as for anything else I'm thinking about, this game is a prequel as it takes place in the earliest 20th century, like 1905 or 1907, right around the time where Great Britain and Japan were more like in a peaceful terms in a sense, trying to understand each other's culture. And of course, this game is also kind of notorious and okay, so if you're not comfortable with this part of the stream, go ahead, but this game also has racial ramifications. Like, Great Britain thinks it's the most powerful nation in all of the world, and the Japanese don't understand us fully well. They must be morons, and we are. Okay, so you get what I'm going at, but little by little, that gets to be proven wrong so many times, and the Japanese, the main character, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, proves everybody wrong by the end, thinking to make a point that, hey, maybe they do have a point, and maybe they aren't as idiots or as evil as we thought they are to be. And even the main rival Baroque fan Zeeks is like, maybe I should trust them. Maybe I should trust them after a while, because he's also kind of, although his ideology is more obscure because of past events here and there, but Great Ace Attorney it not only has really good characters in it, but most of the cases are phenomenal. The settings are really good. The cases are interesting. The music is fantastic. And the gameplay is really interesting because it's the usual kind of stuff in the other series, but with a twist thanks to the introduction of the deduction parts. Thanks to Sherlock Holmes. Herlock Sholmes, there we are. I almost said the other thing. Because they have the legend himself, even though he's copyrighted in this game. So yeah. I used to think that the first game in the series was the best, but after playing this duology, I do have to point out that this is actually better and as a cohesive whole in a sense that this duology makes actual sense. Now, here's the reason why I had it originally as 2 games, because back in the last decade they were made as 2 games. And this collection wasn't that game originally, but it was really fun to play back. It has been really fun to play this duology in its entirety, because now you get the gist of everything in this game. It's so strange that this one cartridge can hold 2 games now. So yeah, I definitely, this is my favorite game, my favorite Capcom game, although that's just because I have an Ace Attorney bias here and there. I think the Ace Attorney series was the first Capcom series I've ever really enjoyed, before I played more of Mega Man, more of Monster Hunter. Actually, Monster Hunter G was an interesting experience from when I played it all those years ago. But yeah, the Ace Attorney series, I think, is the first Capcom series that I've ever played and fell in love with, and that's why the Ace Attorney series is really important to me. So yeah, I'm really glad to have shown some part of my collection, and for those watching, I hope that enjoyed my reasoning for some of these games up here. If you have your own favorite Capcom games that you like out of the whole thing, then I would likely glad to do it. Also, there might be some other top 10 lists that I will show. Maybe like top 10 Nintendo games out of generations, top 10 PlayStation games, top 10 Square Enix games, top 10 Bandai Namco games, maybe? I'll think about that. But I do think that the whole Capcom as the second party is one of the biggest for me and one of the most underrated. But yeah, Capcom is really amazing. And as for Great Ace Attorney Chronicles and Resident Evil 2 Remake, I believe there's still... I know that the Chronicles game is still in my top 10 of all time, and I really need to see if Resident Evil 2 Remake is, because it's still one of the biggest horror games that I've ever played, and it's really amazing. I do need to get into more Capcom games in the future, and hopefully I will update my list here and there by putting it in, like, when I make this and put it in as an update or whatever. So yeah, if you have your own kind of list that you want to share, put it in the comments. I might agree with you, but realize that I grew up way late, and I grew up in the 90s. Like, video games for me, let's see here, the first time I played video games was like in 1996, around that time, so I wasn't real huge on anything until like really later on. So like Street Fighter, I didn't know what that was. The first ever fighting game that I ever forgotten was Tekken 3, and even then that was an interesting kind of experience. So yeah. Right. Let's see here. I think I'm going to end this list right now. So yeah, this has been Dry Oasis. I've been your host, And these two have been my two co-hosts, Kirby and Snorlax. Say goodbye, Kirby and Snorlax. Bye. And yeah, you can follow me on Twitch, Patreon, Discord, YouTube, or Blue Sky Island or Dry Oasis. I've been your host, and